Listen to me carefully. There's a company right now, at this very moment, that knows where Russian tanks will move before generals give orders. It predicted COVID-19 outbreaks before they hit hospitals. It tracks migration patterns across every major border on Earth. And I'm willing to bet everything you've never even heard its name. This isn't Google. It's not Amazon. It's not even close. It's Palantir Technologies, worth $160 billion, funded by the CIA, and operating in the shadows while everyone argues about ChatGPT and TikTok bans. By the time you finish this video, you're going to understand why this company might be more powerful than any government, and why that should absolutely terrify you. But here's the thing. This story, it's not in the news. It's not trending, and that's exactly how they want it. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you changes everything. September 11th, 2001. You remember where you were. Everyone does. But here's what most people don't know. All the data to prevent those attacks existed. The CIA had pieces. The FBI had pieces. The NSA had pieces. But nobody, and I mean nobody, could connect them. The dots were there. The system just couldn't see the picture. And in the chaos that followed, while America invaded 2 countries and passed the Patriot Act, one man saw an opportunity. Peter Thiel? Fresh off selling PayPal for $1.5 billion, Thiel had a question. If algorithms can catch credit card fraud in milliseconds, why can't they catch terrorists? And that question, that became Palantir, named after the all-seeing magical orbs in Lord of the Rings. Because apparently when you're building surveillance technology, subtlety isn't the priority. Palantir had one goal: build software that could see everything, connect everything, and predict anything. Now here's where it gets wild. Most tech startups pitch to venture capitalists on Sand Hill Road, right? Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, those guys. Not Palantir. Their first investor was In-Q-Tel. Ever heard of it? Probably not. It's the CIA's venture capital fund. Yeah. The CIA has a VC arm. They invest in startups, and they chose Palantir. Let that sink in for a second. The same agency that overthrew governments, ran black sites, and experimented on civilians decided this company was worth funding. That's not a red flag, that's a billboard. But Thiel didn't just want to build software. He wanted to build a weapon, a digital weapon that could sift through oceans of data. Emails, bank transfers, passport records, surveillance footage, satellite images, and find patterns humans couldn't. They called it Gotham, because of course they did. Early versions were a disaster, buggy, over-engineered. One government official said using it was like trying to fly a space shuttle just to find your car keys. But Palantir didn't quit. They kept building, quietly, patiently, obsessively. Because they weren't chasing profit, they were chasing belief. The belief that software could stop the next 9/11. The belief that if you give machines enough data, they'll see what humans miss. The belief that control is just a better algorithm away. And by 2007, they were ready to prove it. Iraq, Afghanistan, 2 wars, thousands of soldiers, and absolute chaos. Roadside bombs were killing troops daily. Insurgents blended into crowds. Intel reports flooded in from every direction, but commanders were drowning. They had data. They just couldn't use it. Then Palantir showed up. Gotham didn't just organize information, it connected it. You could see who planted a bomb, who bought the materials, who transferred money, who made the phone call, and where everyone met. Not in separate reports, in one screen, in real time. Special forces loved it. Analysts begged for access. Soldiers started using it without waiting for approval because it actually worked. It saved lives. And that's when Washington noticed. But here's the twist. The Pentagon didn't want Palantir. Legacy defense contractors had spent decades building relationships, hiring lobbyists, playing golf with procurement officers. Palantir had none of that. They were outsiders. And outsiders don't get $200 million contracts. So when the Army tried to award a massive intel contract to a legacy firm without competition, Palantir did something insane. They sued the United States Army. A Silicon Valley startup sued the Army and won. A federal judge ruled the Army broke procurement law by refusing to even consider Palantir's software, even though soldiers were already using it in combat. The message was clear. Innovation isn't optional anymore. Palantir got the contract, but they also made enemies, powerful ones, and that was just the beginning. By 2010, Palantir had proven itself in war zones, but war is a small market compared to what came next. Immigration and Customs Enforcement signed on, Homeland Security followed, local police departments got access, and suddenly software built to track terrorists in Afghanistan was being used to track people in America, your neighbor, your coworker, maybe you. Because here's how it works. Palantir doesn't just find criminals, it finds patterns. And patterns can mean anything. This person's cousin rented a truck near a location flagged in a database. Flag them. This person's phone was near a protest that turned violent. Flag them. This person's spending habits changed after visiting a certain website. Flag them. It's not evidence, it's probability. And probability became policy. Civil rights groups exploded. Immigrant communities felt hunted. Inside Palantir, engineers started resigning. One wrote, "I wanted to stop terrorists, not deport families." But outside the office, contracts kept coming. More agencies, more money, more power. Because Palantir had crossed a line. It wasn't just a defense contractor anymore, it was infrastructure. And once you're infrastructure, you don't get replaced, you get embedded deeper. Then came the corporate pivot. Palantir launched Foundry, Gotham's cleaner, corporate cousin. Same power, different packaging, and suddenly, everyone wanted in. BP used it to optimize oil drilling. Airbus used it for supply chain logistics. Hedge funds used it to predict markets before Bloomberg terminals could blink. Pharma companies used it to run clinical trials. In 2020, when COVID-19 hit, Palantir was everywhere. The US government used it to track outbreaks. Hospitals used it to allocate ventilators. Airlines used it to manage shutdowns. Even the UK government used it to predict PPE shortages. And here's the kicker. Nobody outside Palantir fully understands how the system works. It's not a spreadsheet. It's not a dashboard. It's a black box that gives recommendations. And companies follow those recommendations because the results speak for themselves. Except now we're not talking about stopping terrorists. We're talking about firing employees, closing factories, and reshaping supply chains, all based on algorithms nobody can explain. Does that sound safe to you? Because it shouldn't. By 2022, Palantir wasn't just helping governments. It was the operating system governments ran on. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Palantir was deployed within hours. Ukrainian forces used it to map Russian supply lines, predict artillery strikes, and optimize drone attacks. Palantir called it AI for warfighting. Cool branding, terrifying product. Because now, we're not talking about intelligence reports. We're talking about algorithms whispering, "Aim here, strike now." And it worked. Reports say Ukrainian forces credited Palantir with saving thousands of lives. But here's the question nobody's asking. What happens when both sides have this technology? What happens when AI doesn't just support war, it conducts war? We're not there yet, but we're close. And Palantir is leading the way. But it's not just militaries. It's police departments using predictive policing, border agents using algorithmic profiling, corporations using data fusion to make decisions faster than humans can question them. Critics call Palantir the Oracle of Orwell. Activists say it enables racial profiling, wrongful detention, and algorithmic oppression. Privacy advocates are screaming into the void. And Palantir's response? We're not responsible for how clients use our product. We just build the hammer. That defense worked for a while, but in 2026, with AI fears at an all-time high, people are starting to ask harder questions, like, why does a private company know more than elected governments? Why is critical infrastructure dependent on software nobody understands? And why are we trusting billion-dollar decisions to black box algorithms? Alex Karp, Palantir's CEO, the philosophy PhD with wild hair who looks like he walked out of a Nietzsche seminar, keeps insisting they're the ethical AI company. They don't work with China. They refuse authoritarian regimes. They draw moral lines. But the line between defense and domination, it's getting blurrier every single day. And that brings me to the part that should keep you up at night. You might be thinking, okay, but I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a soldier. Why should I care? Here's why. Palantir's technology doesn't just track individuals. It tracks networks, relationships, patterns, behaviors. And in a world where everything is data, your phone, your purchases, your location, your searches, you're already in the system. Maybe not in Palantir's system specifically, but in systems like it. Because Palantir didn't just build software, they built a blueprint, and now everyone's copying it. Corporations use similar tools to decide who gets hired, who gets fired, who gets promoted. Banks use it to approve loans. Insurance companies use it to set premiums. Governments use it to allocate resources. And none of it is transparent. None of it is regulated. None of it requires your consent. You're not the customer. You're the data. And here's the really scary part. These systems don't just analyze the past. They predict the future. What job you'll get, what disease you'll develop, what neighborhood you'll move to, what crime you might commit, not based on evidence, based on patterns, probabilities, correlations that might mean nothing or everything. Palantir started with a noble mission: prevent another 9/11, build tools to protect people. But over 23 years, that mission blurred, expanded, mutated. Now it's not about protection, it's about control. And the scary thing, most people don't even know it's happening. You're watching this video right now because you want to understand how power really works. You want to see behind the curtain. You don't want to be manipulated, tracked, or predicted without knowing it. And that's why I made this for you. Because someone needs to talk about this. Someone needs to connect the dots. And if YouTube buries this video, if the algorithm decides people shouldn't see it, at least you'll know the truth. Palantir is worth $160 billion today. That's more than SpaceX, more than OpenAI, more than most countries' entire tech sectors. And they did it by making themselves indispensable. Once you're embedded in military operations, government logistics, corporate strategy, you don't get replaced. You become the foundation. The question isn't whether Palantir is powerful, it's whether anyone can hold that power accountable. And right now, the answer is no. So here's what I want you to take from this. The most dangerous companies aren't the ones you argue about online. They're the ones you've never heard of. While everyone panics about TikTok and ChatGPT, Palantir is quietly running the infrastructure of modern power. And they're not the only ones. If this video made you think differently about technology, data, and who really controls the world we live in, subscribe. Because I'm building this channel for people like you. People who want answers, not distractions. Drop a comment and tell me, did you know about Palantir before this? And more importantly, do you think companies like this should exist? I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and don't let anyone tell you you're paranoid for asking questions. Because in 2026, the real question isn't whether you're being watched, it's whether you're okay with it.